Hey, this is Evan Marquette, dating and relationship coach for smart, successful women, your personal trainer for love, here to dispel all the myths that you have about dating, relationships, sex, and men. Today, specifically, we're going to be talking about sex, which is always a fun conversation. If you are a regular listener, please subscribe on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube. Leave us a review, leave us a comment. We appreciate it greatly. Also want to remind you just at the top of the call that if you haven't already registered for my Extraordinary Love Series, this is something you should hop on board. It is complimentary. I don't like to use the word free. It is complimentary. I'm giving it to you as a gift. It is a monthly live Zoom call, lecture, Q&A on a specific topic, specific to high-value women looking for high-value men, looking for guidance in a very crazy and chaotic world. All you have to do is go to extraordinaryloveseries.com, put in your name, email address, and phone number, and get notified. The next episode is going to be how to identify and attract emotionally available men. I think that's something you're probably going to want to tune in for. How to identify and attract emotionally available men. Go to extraordinaryloveseries.com to register. So now we will begin our regularly scheduled programming. And most of what I do here at the Love You podcast is I have a conversation with the client on the phone and I write a one-line note on a Post-it and I'm like, oh my God, I got to talk about this. This is so juicy. Today, I'm sharing something that isn't mine. It's something that someone else wrote and I thought it was really juicy, useful, constructive. The author is Dr. Samantha Rodman, and she wrote two articles. One was on her website, which is, I think, Dr. Psych Mom. Another one was on her Substack, where she busts myths about sex for both women and men. The reason I'm leading with the myths that women have about dating and relationships, and specifically sex, is because 99% of my listeners are women, and so it makes sense to try to bust your myths instead of telling you all the stupid things that guys think about sex that are wildly incorrect. But as a nod to how egalitarian I am and how much I know you like to be told how stupid men are, I'm going to recap 5 of the top myths men have about sex at the very end of this podcast as well, because I think it's funny and all too often true. And I really liked what Dr. Witten had to say, because there's something that's very, very universal about this. Our failure to understand each other's experience, our failure to at least validate each other's experience. If we don't understand someone, it becomes very hard to please them or even get along with them if we can't even see their point of view. So she, I believe, is a psychologist and a couples counselor, and she wrote up some really good stuff, which I'm going to share with you here today. So these are women's 5 assumptions, 5 myths about sex. Myth number 1, it isn't about love for him, it's about getting off. And I'm going to read verbatim a snippet of what she wrote, not the entire thing of what she wrote, and where necessary, I will editorialize. So it isn't about love, it's about getting off. The partner who wants sex more frequently does not just want an orgasm. They want the closeness of physical connection. Sex or touch is the love language of this partner, and when they're continually sexually rejected, it feels as bad for them as an emotional rejection feels for the other spouse. This is sort of a long way of saying that not always, certainly there are monsters out there, but when a man cheats in a relationship, it is not just about sex. It's because he's missing something from his relationship. Sex is the symptom, it's not the cause. I was watching, what was it, Your Friends and Neighbors, the show with John Hamm, and all these rich people are cheating on each other, and it's not because their partners weren't good looking or wealthy or they didn't have enough. Their emotional connection died, their sexual connection died, and so they sought it in other partners. So men very much do want to connect with you, and a piece of that connection is about sex. And unless you have an unusually selfish partner, he cares about your pleasure. In fact, he might care about what he thinks your pleasure is more than you even know. And that's one of the following myths that we're going to talk about later. Myth number 2, he doesn't find me attractive. I'm just the only person he has around to have sex with. Dr. Whitten responds, the man acknowledges that his wife might not look identical to her wedding photos anymore, but he still finds her desirable physically. However, many men no longer find their wives as emotionally attractive, by which I mean their wives do not speak to them with love and appreciation. And then she writes in parentheses, because you have to make a disclaimer when you say that. Yes, I know that you have plenty of reasons that you don't speak to him affectionately anymore. I am just focusing for now on the fact that men usually still find their wives physically arousing, even if they've gained weight or have some wrinkles. 100% true. No, nothing's 100% true, but I can agree with this statement in that nobody looks like they did when they first met 20 years ago. I think my wife and I met in 2007, so it's 18 years now. But that hasn't affected my attraction. There's the newness of it, right? The first year, every time you see each other, you have sex. That changes over time. But fundamentally, even if we've changed and I've gotten grayer and maybe a little bit thicker, I'm not really sure. I still think that we have attraction to each other. We're not just sleeping with each other because we're there. Myth number 3. Porn is disgusting. And if he watches that stuff, he is disgusting too. Now we're getting into some good stuff. Not good, because I'm not endorsing porn per se. But author writes, porn watching in excess is not good for the marriage, but that is extreme. Men are very visual and enjoy watching porn from the age of puberty onwards. If you view your husband's sex drive in any capacity as disgusting, it's going to be a marriage killer. What if he told you he found you repulsive for the secret fantasies you harbor? Or for, let's say, for watching 50 Shades of Grey. I'm assuming you would feel hurt and ashamed, and it's safe to say he feels the same way when you condemn him for porn watching. I know the reaction. Say it's not the same thing, but it's something that is in the realm of fantasy. As long as he doesn't take that fantasy to reality, it remains a harmless fantasy, like whatever erotica turns you on. If he's actually interacting with people, if he's spending thousands of dollars, different story. So we're not defending the addiction, but the de facto statement that if a guy likes seeing 21-year-old porn stars, this is inherently wrong, and he's wrong for finding those women attractive, you're going to have a really hard time validating seeing his point of view. And I had, the world's biggest dating blog back, in 2016, 2017. And these were the kind of topics that were sort of the biggest, most divisive topics that I would touch on. There's one article I wrote years ago called Why Men Look at Other Women and Why Men Cheat, or something like that. And I tried to do my take on why that is from a guy's perspective. And so if you want to Google that, you can go check it out. Maybe I'll even put it in the show notes. Myth number 4. Other guys initiate sex all the time. And here I am stuck with this passive blob who never initiates. And this is how you know this is written by a woman. So she writes, you'd be surprised how painful sexual rejection is for men. Men frequently say things like, ever since the first couple times she moved away when I tried to touch her, I never tried again. It's likely that in your husband's mind, his passivity is a natural response to having been rejected. If he doesn't try, he can't fail. Also, men have a fantasy of a woman initiating sex. And this is something that, again, I guess I'll talk about on a personal level. I don't find that my wife, I'll talk about our sex life, but I don't routinely feel rejected, but I do understand if it's X number of weeks in a row, and if that person always feels tired, that person always feels bloated, that person always feels stressed, not in the mood, and that extends for a long period of time. if every time you asked a friend to go out to dinner with you, a girlfriend to go out with dinner for you, and every single time for 4 consecutive initiations she said no, eventually you'd start to feel that it was personal, even if it wasn't personal. Just her continually putting you off, it starts to feel personal. And it's hard for people not to internalize that. If women expect men to be the initiators and their initiating doesn't really turn into anything unless the sun is aligned properly and all her ducks are in a row with her business and her kids and her body image and all that kind of stuff. No one's saying that you should have sex when you don't feel like having sex. Just know that if you're the initiator and it doesn't go anywhere, eventually it's going to start to sap your will. Also, to the point of many men have a fantasy of a woman initiating sex. I talked about masculine, feminine energy. When I was a single guy, I was definitely much more of in my masculine, much more of the, conqueror type guy, dated a lot. In marriage, I've discovered that maybe it's because we're married that the thrill of the seduction is not there in the same way. I often like when my wife is more aggressive. Not something we spend a lot of time talking about privately or publicly, but in thinking about this out loud, I like it when my wife initiates, and she likes it when I initiate. And I think that's part of the point. Women assume men should always initiate, and they forget that men like to be desired too. Right? We think of desire as this one-way street. Right? Women are the beautiful ones. Women are the adored, cherished, sexy ones. Right? And that is true. And your guy should make you feel desired. But I challenge you to think of how often you make him feel desired. And I think a lot of people, especially in long-term relationships, both men and women, fail at that test. Myth number 5. Men want crazy stuff in bed. That's why they watch porn. I can't or won't do all of that. And that's why he's not satisfied with me. Author writes, most men I see have one wish, that their wife would act like she genuinely enjoys their sexual and physical relationship. I have yet to meet a male client who is solely obsessed with sexual activities that you would see in porn. But you ask, what about how he always wants oral sex? Well, the fantasy here is really to be with a woman that is so into them and so into sex that she enjoys oral sex as well. It's not just the oral sex per se, but rather the idea of a woman that is sexual and who wants to please her partner. Ding, 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 ding. So spot on. I have my Love You course. It's a 26-week. It's a massive, everything you ever needed to know about dating, relationships, sex, and men. I have 1 unit on sex. That is one of the things that I say in my course, right? That men don't care too much about your age, too much about your weight, too much about what you're wearing, right? All they care about, the thing that means everything to them, is your enthusiasm for him and the act, whatever it is. That's what makes you good in bed, is your enthusiasm. That's probably why women kind of take into faking orgasms. That's what really gets him going. So there's what gets you going, which is valid, and we'll talk about that and how men fail in that regard. But all he cares about is that you are as excited about him as you want him to be excited about you, right? And again, think about how often you have that sort of animalistic, I want you, I want it, right? That doesn't show. You're kind of waiting for him to rev you up, and it puts the onus squarely on him. And all I could say as a guy who's been in this space for a long time, sometimes the simplest answer is the truest answer. We're not that worried about great technique. You don't have to go take any online tutorials. Enthusiasm, enthusiasm, enthusiasm. And so, I don't know if that made you think. I don't know if that made you feel. I don't know if that made you angry or makes you want to write something in the comments. Remember, I'm just reading this. None of this is mine, so you can't get angry at me. These are the same doctor's take on men's assumptions about sex. She listed 11 of them, but for the sake of brevity, I'm only choosing 5. And these are the myths that men have about women's belief in sex. Myth number 1. Frequent and strong sexual desire and thoughts should be natural and normal for all people in long-term relationships. A thing that men get wrong. The fact of the matter is that if your wife is experiencing decreased sexual desire, it is entirely normal. She's likely hitting the trifecta of libido killers for women: long-term monogamy, exhaustion, and body image issues. Also, very spot on. So notice, and we'll go back to this, notice the internal contradictions. Men want you to be really, really excited for them, but body issues, exhaustion, monogamy. How do you get excited for something when you're not really feeling excited? This is why people have to continue to make an effort to water the garden of their relationship, lest we let nature take its course, then everybody lapses into a sense of ambivalence about sex rather than enthusiasm about sex. Myth number 2. Most married couples are having sex at least 3 times a week, if not more. Nope. Thank you, doctor, for saying what I've been saying for years. Nope. Pretty much they aim for 1 to 2 times a week, and then life and kids get in the way of that aspiration. We are famously, I wouldn't say famously, I'm not overestimating my importance, but we are openly a once-a-week couple. We have been a once-a-week couple ever since we moved in together, right? When we were first dating, every time we saw each other 2-3 days a week. And then once we moved in together, which happened for us to be after marriage, it almost immediately lapsed into trying to have children, having children, and we're either Friday night or Saturday night, depending upon whether we went out, how much we ate, our respective energy levels. But we make sure that we keep up the once-a-week cadence, even when we're not feeling it, because it is so very important. And we always enjoy it. We never regret having done it. And I remember talking to couples and sharing that on this podcast over the years. The people who make fun of us for being like, oh, it's Evan and Bridget and it's their Friday night. And people tease us. And they're couples who are waiting for the spark, the divine inspiration, for their libido to catch up, right? Exhausted middle-aged couples in the suburbs. And you'll often find that they haven't had sex for 5 weeks because they're waiting for the moment and life got in the way and there wasn't the moment. That is a relationship killer. Myth number 3. Men's myth number 3. Women go into sex expecting and wanting the focus to be on their pleasure. This is where I am guilty. And so that's why I like sharing this with you. Author writes, instead, I hear female clients share frequent fantasies of being with men who are overpowered by lust. If a woman feels like her partner has the sole goal of giving her an orgasm, it's quite a lot of pressure and can make her feel self-conscious and awkward. This does not mean that women don't want to enjoy sex, but they have to feel their partner is enjoying it, at least primarily because he finds her so attractive sexually that he feels urgent desire for her. Guilty, guilty, guilty. I think, I don't know where it came from. Maybe it was just like the guy who was a hard worker in high school. He studied for the PSATs back in the day. Hard work, A+, give me a gold star kind of student. So for me, it was always, I want to give an orgasm. I want to put her pleasure first. And I've had to learn over the years that my wife is actually more inclined to do a quickie than I am. For me, it feels selfish to get it over with really quick. And I've just learned the truth of that statement. It's one of the things that I've underestimated, and I think women underestimate too, is how much we all want to feel hot and desired, right? And if that means overwhelming lust and you're over in a minute, then that's better than the, he's still going thing, which again, guilty of, because I don't feel like I've done my job unless I've pleased. So maybe I'm sharing too much, but I do think this is a very real thing. Women go into sex expecting and wanting the focus to be on their pleasure, not necessarily true. Myth number 4, women orgasm from intercourse alone pretty frequently. I've been in this space long enough to know the truth about that. Doctor validates about 75% of women don't orgasm from intercourse alone. So your wife is not weird or not in touch with her sexual side. She's just your run-of-the-mill, non-intercourse orgasming woman. And I think when guys put so much pressure on themselves to have to make that happen, whether that comes from previous experiences where people did have people did have that experience with you, or you thought they had that experience with you, or whatever you've gotten through pop culture over the years, the expectations about what it's supposed to look like, some mythical mutual orgasm. Life just has a way of bringing you down to earth and humbling you and realizing there's lots of ways to please, and ultimately your partner's an individual and you've got to figure out how to please her. And a lot of guys assume that women operate like men, and it's just intercourse-based orgasms, and that's very simple, narrow-minded guy behavior. They assume that you're having the exact same experience that they're having. Myth number 5, and I saved this for last, and it's not important. It's not important to me, but I thought it was, again, a good way to end. Watching porn does nothing to hurt our sex life or relationship, and this is the myth. She says, if you're giving the best of yourself to an internet person, it's not going to your wife. I'm further willing to bet that it makes your wife feel crappy to know that you're looking at other naked women, many of whom are going to look more conventionally hot. And the more porn men watch, sorry, I took my eye off the ball. The more porn men watch, the less likely they are to be satisfied with the physical appearance and sexual appetites of their real-life partner. So I ended on this one because it points to 2 contradictory things that can be true at the exact same time. A, it's normal for men to look at women in porn. B, too much of this behavior can be very destructive to a relationship. And so that is so important to see, right? Because that is almost every argument. Anytime, a man invalidates your perspective, you feel unheard and more distant from him. When women invalidate men's perspective, they feel the same way. And then we get further and further away from sharing the same reality within a marriage, within a relationship. And then the relationship starts to crumble because we're not at least understanding where the other person's coming from. So as a male coach for women, I very much understand how porn can be deleterious to any relationship. But again, we're talking about masturbation in moderation, if done in moderation, and that is not inhibiting his sexual desire or sexual frequency behavior with you, then it becomes as benign as reading 50 Shades of Grey. If it tips over into more, and it often tips over into more, then indeed there is a problem with how the man consumes porn, which is the same with alcohol. Is only a problem if he has a problem with alcohol, not if he has a glass of wine at dinner. So seeing it in the same way, that it is more balanced than one-sided, men have to validate your perspective, you have to validate their perspective, and that is why we have this podcast. Before we go, don't forget to register for the Extraordinary Love Series for high-achieving women looking to attract high-value men. The topic, how to identify and attract emotionally available men. Go to www.extraordinaryloveseries.com to register. And if you are navigating your own relationship terrain, if you are finding that dating is challenging, if you are losing hope because the world's pretty crazy and you want to go through life with your person instead of going through life alone, go to evanmarkatz.com/now, put in your name and email address, book a time to talk with me. I look forward to getting to know you better and holding your hand to help you get the love that you truly, richly deserve. I love you. I appreciate you. I thank you for listening to the Love You podcast, and I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.